It is Friday, April the 1st. Welcome to your post-daily news show. I am John Pollock along with Wai Ting, heading into the weekend. You have any plans, Wai?
Just a little, yeah.
I'm going to do some furniture shopping. We have lots to discuss today. We are going to be going through both nights of WrestleMania. We'll kind of go through the cards. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the other shows happening. There are approximately 4,612 events happening tonight, all running head-to-head with one another, including SmackDown and the Hall of Fame. And we've already dropped one WrestleMania bonus show. So for Post Wrestling Cafe members, old and new, you can catch that now with Wai and I giving in-depth reviews of Bloodsport from Thursday night, as well as part one of Spring Break.
That is correct, John. Yeah, we've got a bunch of shows, of course, coming out this week. We just did that. We also have, of course, the return of MCU later. That is up there right now. That'll be there every single week, covering Moon Knight, of course. So, and of course, you also get these daily news updates in your RSS feed if you're an audio listener. So, postwrestlingcafe.com. It is the beginning of the month, the best time to sign up.
Yes, $6 gets you in the door for an entire month of access, and that will include all of our bonus shows this weekend, including tonight right after SmackDown and the Hall of Fame, and then two separate shows coming out Saturday during the day. One from myself doing the Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor review, and then Wai and John Pine will review Night 2, Part 2 of Joey Janela's Spring Break. And for everybody, we are live minutes after WrestleMania, both nights here on the YouTube channel. So subscribe to the channel and sign up to the Post Wrestling Cafe. You will be covered every direction possible for WrestleMania weekend. Wai, as you are watching all of this, is there any FOMO on your part? Or are you happy to just be back here and sit back and absorb the chaos through a laptop?
No FOMO about not being there live. I mean, of course, I think being there live would have been a lot of fun, but having to watch and then podcast right afterwards, I much prefer doing it from the comfort of my home versus us having to navigate through traffic, to go back to the hotel, find a place to record, and then staying up till, God knows what hour, only to do it again the next day. So, if I was just watching the shows, I'd love to be there, but like to cover it, it's way better, way easier here.
I would love to hang out with a lot of the people there. A lot of my friends are there, that kind of thing. But on the other side of things, I always go back to that year in New Orleans when you and I were in the back seat of our car, of our rental, in the parking lot at the Louisiana Superdome, recording our post show and wondering, is this the best way possible to be doing this in the back seat of the car?
I mean, didn't we end up? I mean, I'm sure that's how we did it, and then I ended up uploading it from the airport. It was crazy.
Anyway, no more reminiscing. We're all looking forward here, but just some notes coming out of Thursday. So we did put up our reviews of Bloodsport and from Spring Break Part 1. And I would say like the matches that I've seen gain the most buzz would be for Biff Busick and Jon Moxley on the Bloodsport card. There was also a really great match involving Yuya Uemura and Speedball Mike Bailey. And then I did get a chance to see Speedball and Bandito from the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Super Show, which ended up getting the $5,000 bonus. They were the opener. They tore it up. I would say Moxley, Busick, and Speedball Bandito are kind of the front runners so far for match of the weekend after 24 hours.
Yeah. Speaking of FOMO, maybe I was feeling a little bit of FOMO about not checking out this March Hitchcock Memorial Super Show. It sounded like everything was really quite fantastic on it. It had quite the lineup, quite the number of surprises as well. And this Speedball versus Bandito match is definitely one that I want to make some time to go and check out.
It's a great match. I would certainly recommend that. There was also, in the main event, it was the Briscoes against the Rottweilers of Low Key and Homicide. And I have not seen the match, but I did see the pre-match, if we want to call it that, where Low Key ended up getting into it with this fan at ringside who was in the front row. And this just went on and on. And I mean, the Briscoes are just kind of standing there in the ring, like waiting for this, and Loki is just not dropping it with this guy. Eventually, the fan is like taken away, and then Loki demands that he come back. Homicide gets on the mic and just delivers some like horrible language that I'm not going to repeat, but I found it like to be really, really distasteful. And that was, I don't know. It just kind of took me out of like even being interested in watching this match afterwards. But I can't comment on the match itself. But nonetheless, it was it just seemed to be an ugly incident that it did result in the fan. He did get back to his seat, and I do not know what prompted this, but him and Loki were going back and forth before this match even began.
Yeah. We're in the midst of a week where we've been talking a lot about perhaps the relationship between the performer and the audience member, and provocation, and when things might be, where things might be okay and where things might get too much. And I don't exactly know what happened here, but I mean, it felt very tense, and I would say for the theme of a show being a memorial show, very out of place. There are certain promotions where I think something like this might have been a bit more, I suppose, on brand, on tone. But for something that ended up being a memorial show, it felt a little bit drawn out and unnecessary. But we do have a bit of an update here on Reddit from the fan himself, who was carrying this cookie sheet seemingly throughout the night. He seemed to have a good time, at least. He says here, so I'm the guy who got into it with Loki. He says, I was banging on this tray for Jay Briscoe to kick his ass, and Loki didn't like that. He tried to get me to jump the barricade and fight him, which I wasn't stupid enough to do. It got to the point where the organizers just told me to go to the back and get the show rolling. Then Key and Homicide told the organizers to send me back. They complied. Key and I went at it some more. Later in the match, Mark asked for the tray scene and then whacked Key in the head with it twice, gave it back, and life went on. Jay also signed it, so that's nice. So, I mean, seems like everything kind of worked out fine, but yeah, there were some ugly moments, and I mean, if one person decided to get physical, things could have gotten a lot more uglier. So
yeah, we should make it like there was no physical altercation between this, but it was certainly escalating, and I did understand like the organizers, like this was just grinding the show to a halt. Like the announcers didn't know how to cover this on the broadcast with Ian Riccaboni and Veda Scott, and it just like Loki was not dropping this either. And I mean, from the fans' perspective, it sounded like it was pretty pedestrian what he was doing. It didn't sound like it was would spark such a response. But anyway, that was that from the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Super Show. That, I mean, of what I've seen, I saw the first 3 matches. Very good show thus far, kicking off with the Speedball and Bandito match. And that takes us into Friday. And this might be the busiest day of the year in terms of big events running. We've got, as we speak, the LA Fights, Jersey Championship Wrestling card going on, Jersey City, and then Zicky Dice's Trouble in Paradise is happening later today. MLW has their show in Dallas that they're taping. For the Culture is at 4 Eastern, and then New Japan Strong at 6 tonight. That's going to be on Fight TV with Tomohiro Ishii and Chris Dickinson, Jay White against Speedball, Minoru Suzuki and Killer Cross, Juice Robinson, David Finlay, Daniel Garcia, and Kevin Knight against Mascara Dorada, Clark Connors, Carl Fredericks, and Yuya Uemura, Rocky Romero against Ren Narita, and they're also taping matches for future New Japan Strong episodes with Jonah against Blake Christian, Tom Lawler, Royce Isaacs, JR Kratos against Fred Rosser, Alex Coughlin and the DKC, and Bateman and Barrett Brown against Chris Bay and Hikuleo. The World on Lucha, SmackDown tonight with the Hall of Fame ceremony involving Vader, Sharmell, the Steiner brothers, Shad Gaspard getting the Warrior Award, and The Undertaker, and then SmackDown itself with Ricochet defending the Intercontinental title against Umberto and Angel, and the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. With I'm
having a hell of a time trying to keep up with you with these graphics.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I went backwards there. We didn't have a set lineup here, but. Yes, it is. We will be covering SmackDown and the Hall of Fame tonight, and then tomorrow I'll be getting to the Supercard of Honor show, which is had some additions. We are going to get Rhett Titus against Minoru Suzuki that has been added to the show, and that's going to be for the television title. Tully Blanchard is going to debut a new client to take on Ninja Mac, so that seems to be something that has like storyline implications in terms of Tully Blanchard's involvement. And of course, it's headlined by Jonathan Gresham and Bandito, where Chavo Guerrero Jr. is going to be in the corner of Bandito. And as we've talked about this week, I think this is the show that has it should be very newsworthy just in terms of who the titles stay on or are moved to, if there are any announcements about the future of ROH, if Tony Khan is going to make any announcements. Khan has stated that You don't want to leave early, so indicating something of significance is going to close this show. But I guess there's a lot of eyes on this show, and I would say in terms of just overall interest for the show, I think Briscoes and FTR has a lot of interest tonight.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. To me, this is maybe outside of WrestleMania. For our audience at least, maybe this is the most hyped show of any on WrestleMania weekend because of the involvement of Tony Khan and seeing what direction he might be taking the company in. Who keeps the championships? Who might be surprise debuts here? We already have one tease of Tully's new client. I'm sure there will be some other surprises as well. So. This seems to be the show, I think, with the most ramifications outside of whatever's happening in the WWE.
Then we have the Impact Multiverse of Matches show, which is a very good card on paper. That's starting at 10 Eastern on Fight TV with Eddie Edwards against Tomohiro Ishii, which they are kind of billing as like a Noah versus New Japan match. And Speedball, of course, part of this show on top of it. The Briscoes will be doing Ring of Honor and then getting over here to do this show against the Good Brothers. So it's a very strong lineup that Impact has here. This is one of those cards where I wonder if it's going to slip through the cracks for people, if they'll go back and watch it. It's just on a really tough night that perhaps if this had been on Thursday night, I think a lot of people would be jumping to check out this card. There's just so many options tonight, and there are going to be some cards that get lost in the shuffle, and it's tough to kind of go back when you have so much more coming at you.
Yeah, people will have their preferences, and I think Impact Wrestling has a very loyal fan base that'll probably choose to watch this one. If your favorite wrestler happens to be on this show, you'll probably end up watching this one as well instead of some of the others. But in either case, I do feel like there's more attention on wrestling in general today than there are in other days of the week. So maybe there are just more people to spread around.
And worth noting the fact that you have Deonna Purrazzo during her champ challenge as, your Reina de Reinas champion, but also ROH Women's champion, and not on the Supercard show where they're introducing an interim title with Willow Nightingale and Mercedes Martinez. So she is not working both shows, just working the Impact show tonight.
Yeah, and I believe that was probably just a bit of a compromise here because for lack of wanting Purrazzo to miss out for instance on her home territory perhaps, but it also sets something up for the future.
And then late tonight is Spring Break Part 2. We've got the Clusterfuck Battle Royal. Matt Cardona against Chris Dickinson with Chelsea Green and Missy Hyatt in opposite corners. Minoru Suzuki against Effie. Tony Deppen against Biff Busick. And Speedball Mike Bailey versus PCO. The Battle of Canada.
Quebec?
Yes, yeah, we can get specific there with the Battle of Quebec. So, where's you're going to be watching Spring Break, presumably on Saturday. Are you intrigued by this lineup?
I think it's okay, honestly. Like probably not the most exciting thing that's happening on Friday night, but I'm looking forward to whatever surprises that the show may bring. I mean, as we kind of discussed last night in our Spring Break review, I feel like some of the luster has kind of gone off of this year's Spring Break versus previous, where I don't think the matchmaking seems to be all that crazy. The promotion might be overshadowed slightly by some of the other things. Although we do, of course, have Effie versus Minoru Suzuki, which I think will be really interesting to see, and we do have also the clusterfuck, which will be taking place. So that'll always, that's a match built on surprise, isn't it?
Yes, and then going into Saturday, we're not going to go through all the matches on these cards. U.S. versus the World is at noon. Stand and Deliver is at 1 Eastern with a 1 hour pre-show. I'm hoping to catch at least some of Stand and Deliver tomorrow. We will see how everything shakes out. Effie's Big Gay Brunch is also at noon. Mission Pro has a show, and then that takes us into the evening. Night 1 of WrestleMania. So let's go through the card here. Some of these matches, they don't need to have too much in-depth discussion attached to them. We'll start from the bottom here with Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods against Sheamus and Ridge Holland. It's a tag match. Do you see any possibility of a cameo appearance by Big E, even by video or any kind of presence of Big E, or do you think that is not going to be in the cards for any kind of New Day representation on the show?
I think you might hear his voice, at the beginning. Whether or not we actually see him, I mean, he's been showing himself plenty on Twitter, so I don't see why they wouldn't. But I mean, if you know, we know the WWE is kind of weird with the way they like to present their wrestlers, and do they want to show him in a neck brace? I would say why not? It's WrestleMania, you know. Like, just I would love it. I think it would be quite sentimental.
Yeah, in terms of the match, like I think you could go either way here. This feud probably continues because I imagine whenever Big E, like the timeline for Big E is obviously going to be up in the air, but I imagine at some point they will get back to this. It's just a straight tag. You could really go either way. You could either keep the heels winning here, or you give a happy finish here with the New Day winning.
I don't care, honestly. It doesn't matter.
Drew McIntyre against Happy Corbin. I think this is one where, no one will see it coming and Happy Corbin could win. I think this was just a keep busy program for Drew McIntyre. They need top baby faces coming out of this show for your main event scene. So I imagine this is the end of this program and Drew wins. I don't think it needs to be overthought. Yeah,
I would certainly hope so. It's a match built on stealing swords twice, getting the sword back, and then getting it stolen again.
And Moss probably you probably go through the breakup, or at least really tease that in this with Corbin and Moss. Like Moss gets involved somehow or screws up, and anyway, Corbin loses. That's where I see this going.
Yeah, probably.
The Miz and Logan Paul against the Mysterios. I think we get the double 619 in this one way. And do you see the Miz and Logan Paul winning?
The Miz and Logan Paul, no, I think the babyface will take this one, and it'll be a feel-good moment. Maybe Logan Paul will turn on the Miz, and then somehow I guess just have the social media superpowers implode.
Look at these photos; like these are some dramatic photos of these four.
Yeah, are they?
I guess so. Logan Paul, doesn't he just scream babyface to come out of this if they break up?
Well, we'll see how the crowd takes it. I mean, I don't know. It'll take quite the match for him to be likable by this audience.
Seth Rollins versus Marco Stunt.
Yeah, I think Marco will do great. It'll be his WrestleMania debut. It'll be incredible, and the crowd will erupt. It'll be amazing.
Where do you put this on the show? Do you put it like somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, or even maybe like semi, like up towards the end. You
could do this late. I think you could honestly get away with doing this really late. I think it's a guaranteed massive response that you're going to get. It could be, with the exception of Austin, it could be the second biggest reaction of the show for Cody.
Could be the biggest.
Always possible. Like that.
I mean, the Hardy Boys return was the biggest thing of that entire thing. And, it's expected, but they haven't explicitly said it. So I think we'll see. We'll see what Cody's value means to a WrestleMania WWE crowd.
How would you structure this match? Like, do you do like a 15, 16-minute match? Do you do something quick and short, and it's just to put all of your emphasis on Cody? Like, do you do like a full-on match here? That, I mean, these two can certainly have an excellent match, but what do you expect from that side of things?
I can certainly see this one getting a rematch at Backlash, so maybe you do a bit of a shorter one. But I think in order to feel satisfying, they should probably at least have it go 10 minutes, I think.
Then we have the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, the Usos against Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. I guess the Usos keep the titles unless you're the bloodline is falling at the seams. This is one I really do not care about the outcome in it either side, whatever.
They can change the titles and then have the bloodline win it back at Backlash. One of those things. Just I don't know. They seem to have a real fascination with Boogs and Nakamura as like these sort of brand ambassadors. Like being signing them up for like the Toyota Tundra ads, and also now coming up for some other product placement type of thing. So maybe they'll just put the belts on them to increase their value at a WrestleMania. But ultimately, I think the belts go back to the status quo in the Usos.
Mm-hmm. Becky Lynch against Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship. I could see this one going on early. Like sometimes we see them try to put something really big in the opener. I could see it even in that spot, but potentially like opening the show.
Very possible, yeah. I mean, to me, this outside of Roman and Brock has been the best built feud in all of WrestleMania. One of the only feuds, I think, with long-term storytelling, and it is set to culminate, of course, with Bianca Belair beating Becky Lynch after the embarrassing loss at SummerSlam. But of course, anything can happen. We saw a great haircut angle on Monday where Bianca Belair got the upper hand, and sometimes that can indicate, a type of finish at the pay-per-view, or maybe in this case it wouldn't. What did you think of Becky Lynch's new haircut?
I think it looks good. Like, it's a totally different look for her, and I really do see that being like the step in this. I mean, it hasn't been like overtly pushed like this character shift, but you really get that sense that they could go in a totally different direction with Becky after this, staying as a heel, but just has totally lost it now with this title gone. So that's one reason I can see the title switch happening here.
She's not exactly upset about this haircut. I think she looks great, of course, and she knows it. So I don't know how maddening she's going to be after this.
Well, maybe that's where we get this title versus hair program next month at Backlash, and Becky loses all of her hair.
Oh, okay, that would be interesting.
Charlotte Flair against Ronda Rousey. This is a very important match, and it's going to be the biggest test for Ronda Rousey since her return. I don't think this is a match that you can just get away with doing 6-7 minutes with, and I think this is going to be one that is going to be under the microscope. I think it's been a polarizing view of Ronda Rousey since she has come back. I don't think she has lit programming on fire to the degree that she did years ago, and this is a major match and is probably happening late in the show. Do you see a title change here? Because this is one that we know Ronda is sticking around, and I don't know if you just necessarily do the title switch here.
I mean, I can see it. The way I think about like this WrestleMania and all the celebrity interactions, and somebody like Ronda Rousey being on the show, is what are the photos that they want on the newspapers the next day, and having somebody like a Ronda Rousey, or having a Stone Cold Steve Austin on the front cover, or having a Ronda Rousey hold the championship belt at the end of the scene, I think is something that they could very well do. So if she does win, it would not surprise me in the least. She's sticking around, so having her headline the next couple set of shows, I think would probably make a lot of sense from their shareholders' perspective. To me, it's a program that I think from the get-go has been secondary, because at least for the hardcore fan, Charlotte is not the opponent that everybody wants for Ronda. We all know where, Becky is the one, and it's the one, in fact, that they're saving for presumably for next year. And therefore, I can't help but look at this particular match as just, semi-main event status, B-level status, but it's a test for Ronda. And it'll be a test to see how much the WrestleMania crowd, composed of partial mainstream fans, partially maybe a lot of hardcore fans, how they'll treat this match.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very likelihood I think you could flip both women's titles on this show. But again, it's what they want to come out of this with, and it's like you can always bounce back and make the argument that why flip both when we can just do one and save another for a later date.
And if it came down to those choices, I feel like Bianca Belair might be the one that they would delay for the smaller show.
I agree with you. So yeah, I'm more so less the outcome and more so just the actual match and how it's put together. It's a test for both, I think, with one another, and it's going to be a heavily focused upon match. And then the Kevin Owens show with Owens and Steve Austin. If you were structuring this show, should this be the final segment on the show? Should this close WrestleMania?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I don't think anything could follow it, including Charlotte versus Ronda, including Bianca Belair versus Becky, including Cody versus Seth Rollins. I mean, is there enough interest? No, not the headline and main event of WrestleMania. To me, going off the air with Stone Cold Steve Austin doing his beer shower is the way you want to end that show and send everybody home happy. We kind of know what to expect for this one, but we don't exactly know what it's going to look like. And by the moment that it happens, seeing Austin get involved knee deep into what looks like a wrestling match but technically isn't, is going to feel awesome for everybody.
Yeah, like they've held off on putting Austin on television. Like everything is built up to that music hitting and this place going crazy for him. I just think it's To me, it's an easy choice. This should close the show. It's the hottest thing on this first night. You could argue it's the hottest thing of either night.
You can argue for sure, yeah. Certainly from a mainstream perspective, I think it's the one that maybe might have the most interest. I want to see how they play with our expectations, again, because we all know what's going to happen, but do they do it straight up? Hey, here's Kevin Owens, here's the glass breaking, and here's Steve Austin, or do we get some,
I do not want to see Dwayne Gill. I do not want to see Dwayne Gill come out as your tease.
No, I don't either. Well, I would love to see Dwayne Gill, actually. I think he's great. Maybe Shane McMahon. Maybe I don't know who else, but I just want to see how they play with expectations.
Do you feel like what is going to be kind of the roadmap for Kevin Owens after this show?
It's a great question. Yeah. Does he have anything significant coming off of this? I mean, of course, he's a full-time wrestler for them, recently re-signed, and I don't see him graduating to a title contention match after this, but he is going to be somebody, I think, with increased name value. Let me try to think.
To me, he's been one of the MVPs of this build-up for Mania. And another interesting stat is that, I was looking at your Canadian numbers for Raw from February to March, and March coincided with the setup of this match, and Raw has been up 40% in viewership from February. Now, I'm not saying that's all Owens and Austin, but it's not just WrestleMania build, because SmackDown's on the very same network here in Canada, and it's not like they're doing the numbers Raw is. And that spike has coincided with this challenge, and each week, they've been doing very strong viewership in Canada, and I think that you certainly have to give some of that to Kevin Owens, if not, a significant amount.
Sure, absolutely.
I think this is a really hot program, and Kevin Owens, I think, has been a very valuable asset in this lead up in a program where he has had to build it up from one side without a dance partner on Raw each week.
Yeah, that's very true. I think he still has something unresolved with Seth Rollins. It felt like that was their direction prior to everything else kind of happening. And they did have that singles match, but it felt very kind of, it didn't feel like it tied the bow on whatever story that they were setting up. So I could see them maybe teaming back together after all of this and then maybe building to a proper match down the line.
We move over to night number 2, Omos against Bobby Lashley. And I mean, is this where you finally beat Omos? And is Bobby Lashley just coming back to, they have a small list of names that I think are credible challengers in your main event picture. Bobby Lashley would be one of them, and whichever way you go, whether it's going back to Lashley and Lesnar or Lashley and Reigns, which would be something fresh. Is that what you expect here? What's the utilization of Omos here?
Yeah, it's a great question because Bobby Lashley's just coming back. But to me, Omos is their big project that they put a lot behind. And again, you have to remember, this is WrestleMania. It's the biggest stage. Yes, they can have Omos come back and win, or either of these two come back and win at WrestleMania Backlash, but only a fraction of the audience will be watching it. So who do they want to have and give the biggest exposure to on the biggest stage? And I kind of feel like it'll be Omos. And even though that means Lashley coming back upon return will lose, I think, of course, there are ways to get around any sort of booking decision that they have. I brought up how, we didn't see MVP with Bobby Lashley on Monday. Is it possible that he comes out? And I certainly think he'd be a wonderful mouthpiece to add to a heel Omos.
Yeah, this one will be interesting. I assume this is designed for Lashley and, putting him into a babyface role now coming out of WrestleMania. But at the same time, you could do this without sacrificing Omos. But I mean, at the same token, what is your ceiling for Omos? Is this as far as we can go with this guy, or do we see a higher trajectory for Omos? I think it'd be very tough to get much more out of him, but they may look at him as someone that is, he's got youth on his side and he looks tall. Man, he turns heads at airports, so they might see a whole lot more in Omos here. It's kind of an interesting match of how they put it all together. Raw Tag Team Championships, RK Bro, the Street Profits, and Alpha Academy. Certainly, if they get some time on the broadcast, if they get 15 minutes, this could be a really terrific match. We've seen great things out of all of these combinations, and this is just one where I think it'll come down to time. But I think this one should be pretty strong match on night 2.
I think so too. Yeah, I think anytime we've seen any combination of these six, and it feels like we've seen a lot of them, but the results in ring have always been pretty good. We kind of know the formula for a lot of these matches. It's, keep beat down on Matt Riddle and then just set up Randy Orton for the giant hot tag, and it works every single time, and I have no doubt it'll work just as well, if not bigger, for this massive stadium audience. I think the most interesting to see will be if we get a turn here, if we get a breakup of RK Bro. I mean, they haven't necessarily hinted toward. I mean, they have hinted towards it, but like very, I would say, intermittently. And I think doing just enough to keep it in the back of your head, but also leaving you completely shocked or at least stunned, when it does happen. And I don't think there's a better place for it to happen than on the biggest stage.
Do you see Randy Orton being the next main roster member to go do a little stop down in NXT to go teach them all how to work?
After his comments on the Pat McAfee show,
boy, what a statement on your whole developmental process.
Can you tell the audience, and for people who didn't see what
he was on Pat McAfee's show, and he kind of just described, like, in NXT, they're essentially they're not being taught to know what they're doing, and he's had enough of them come up. And listen, this is someone that's gone in the ring with I guess a number of these. I think it's always kind of dangerous to just paintbrush everybody, but he certainly, this is somebody that is, he's in there with these guys, and if he feels like they are not safe, I mean, that's his opinion from firsthand experience. But more so interesting that he would say so in a public forum about your developmental system that so much is invested in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, he is, of course, the veteran in that locker room, and I think he should, to me, have the right to say it. He didn't name anybody specific, of course, but I mean, this might be an internal issue that maybe went into the decision of, whoever is now taking over NXT 2.0, taking over and having a more direct line with the main roster's producers.
Just on that note, Wai, like if you were not happy with like the prior kind of group of talents that were being developed and coming with independent experience, like it's the same group, it's the same coaching staff, it's like that same core, but now you're taking a lot of athletes that have no wrestling background, no experience, that are starting from scratch and are being thrown onto television with maybe 0 to 10 matches. Like it's going to be that much longer of a climb.
It depends who you ask, because I feel like some of the discourse amongst the trainers is that it's easier to teach like a new person from scratch rather than trying to unteach people who are so conditioned to one particular style to learn a new way of working. And yeah, it's the same coaches, but again, I have no idea what that system is like. I've never trained to become a professional wrestler, and I don't know what the direction top down might be, but I do have to imagine there might be a change in philosophy from the people up top.
Mm-hmm. In terms of outcome here, I think this is also one where, they're kind of hinting like the Street Profits going heel. You could put the belts on them. It could also just be you continue to ride this, like the RK Bro thing. Like it obviously it's working very well. So maybe let's not disrupt that. Like it's a great act on television, and it doesn't look like they're in any hurry to break them up either. I think inevitably every team gets to that point in WWE, but I don't know if the timing is right unless you're really ready to go with Riddle to advance him to the next level. But for Randy, this is a great spot for Randy. I don't think that you would want to be fast tracking that.
Well, to escalate Riddle to me would be the main thing to come out of this, to build to a program between Riddle versus Orton, and maybe a chance for us to be able to take Riddle a bit more seriously than just the pot referencing dude. And I feel like the team, I don't think you want to wait till the team has is so stale that you're kind of sick of them. Like, this is like Seinfeld, right? Like they're going out on top, which I think is probably what they want. I think the Street Profits coming out of this, maybe as heels, or maybe just simply as baby faces with the belts, and having Bianca Belair on the other side, and the three of them posing together on a Raw with the celebration, or at the end of Bianca's match with the three of them celebrating with all their championships, I think would be a wonderful visual.
I thought Larry King said that Seinfeld was canceled.
Well, he's wrong.
Yeah, he was definitely wrong. An all-time great clip. Then we have Carmella and Queen Zelina against Naomi and Sasha Banks, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, and Natalya and Shayna Baszler. Yes, all of these women are on the card, and Carmella's getting married on Thursday to Corey Graves. Will she be a champion going into her wedding?
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice. Yeah. I mean, this is your substitute basically for the women's battle royal this year. Just a way to shove most of the talent that's not in singles matches on the show. Among them, Sasha Banks, who, like, could they not have found a singles match for her?
She's totally a casualty of this year's WrestleMania. Like, this is a relative nothing match. I do feel like she will have a significant role coming out of WrestleMania because you're going to need it with the women on SmackDown. Like, continue.
The Ronda match is one that can
Definitely.
be very big. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
You're right. But I could see them winning the tag team titles, maybe giving her and Naomi a bit of a run. If
you're going to continue Charlotte and Ronda for another month or two, sure, like you could give them a run with. I would say title change is likely here, and the candidates would be Liv and Rhea and Sasha and Naomi.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, Zelina and Carmella could continue to hold on to the belts, but they've given them zero credibility. And it's really kind of taken down the division a notch. Whereas I feel like they've actually done a decent job with Liv and Rhea and Sasha and Naomi as like credible wrestling threats. So I would like to see that direction.
And in the future, I think you're looking at the eventual returns of Bayley and Asuka to really kind of prop up the women's division on either side of Raw or SmackDown. Pat McAfee and Austin Theory. In terms of a match, what's your expectation for this one?
Well, we have seen what Pat McAfee is capable of, so I'm expecting actually quite a bit.
I think they're going to do pretty well, to be honest. Like I do not think this is going to be a match that is going to.
Look at this Austin Theory photo. Like, holy shit. Like, what kind of filter is that?
The Austin Theory one. Yeah, that looks like a deep fake.
Yeah, I mean, for a man who's like specializes in selfies, like, I mean, this is horrifying. This picture.
He's about a centimeter away from the unibrow.
Pretty much, yeah. He's really like struggling to connect the two. Anyway, sorry to derail.
Pat McAfee, I think he wins this match. I guess the big question is whether or not Vince McMahon gets involved here. It's certainly been hinted at, but not outright to the degree that if he doesn't get involved, it's some kind of letdown. But it seems that he's kind of just been in the background of this in the lead up to it. At one point, that was the match on the books for McAfee and Vince McMahon, but in terms of, Austin Theory was always going to be involved in this. And I think that this is certainly, like, I do feel they're going to do a very good job in this setting. And it'll be curious to see the people that did not see the Adam Cole match that maybe are going to be surprised by Pat McAfee, not knowing that this is someone that trained for a long time with Rip Rogers. Like, this is not somebody that's just picking this up from nothing.
Totally. Absolutely. Again, we have to consider the fact that this is a very different crowd that'll be watching the show, both in attendance and on pay-per-view internationally, versus whoever watched that takeover that Pat McAfee happened to be on with Adam Cole. That was a fraction of the people that'll watch this. So
I see this one getting like a lot of attention the next day on sports shows and such. Like Pat McAfee is X amount bigger star than he was in 2020 when he did the Adam Cole match. And this is a much, much bigger platform. And he himself is a significantly larger name now in the sports media space.
And it's for that reason that I do think you are going to get Vince McMahon interaction, because again, it's all about the photo op. It's all about like who you're seeing Pat McAfee next to. And as much as I think Austin Theory is somebody that they want to push in the future, it means that much more for the headline the next day to the casual fan when they see Pat McAfee and Vince McMahon on the screen doing some sort of crazy shit.
Okay, yes or no? Pat McAfee, Vince McMahon, Canadian Destroyer.
Oh God, I hope not. Who does the Destroyer? That's the better question.
Well, that's the spot. So there you go, Pat McAfee and Austin Theory. We go on to AJ Styles and Edge. I think this one has to be great. Like a really, really great match. I feel they will have the time. Like looking at this card, they should get 20 minutes or so, maybe even a bit more than that. But this is the one that probably has the highest expectation level. To me, the build has been very basic. I don't think it's been great, but I don't think it's been bad. It's just, hey, we've got our heel, we've got our babyface. And for the sake of this match, that's probably the dynamic you want of AJ in the babyface role. But this one, I think, has the highest expectation level, just in terms of bell to bell, to be your meat and potatoes great wrestling match, and it needs to be great.
It's very true, and in all of, I would say maybe 85 to 89% of Edge's pay-per-view appearances have been terrific, and AJ Styles is AJ Styles, so combining the two of them on a WrestleMania card, the only restriction I think would be time, because I think they're guaranteed almost to have a great match. It just depends on, how great will we be considering it after the weekend's done. So, yeah, you're right. The build hasn't been great, but they just needed to do something to establish the babyface and the heel roles, and they managed to do that.
How about who goes over in this one?
Oh, great question.
I mean, Edge has just introduced this new character, but at the same time, like, you want a babyface then to work with. Yeah, you could argue that. Like,
although
AJ,
he did beat the Miz in the mixed tag.
I mean, AJ just re-signed, for a significant number as well. Like, you may be looking at AJ to be in a prime spot. Like, the winner of this match, you would think, is prime for something significant coming out of Mania.
Or a rematch at WrestleMania Backlash. Like, this is one of those that I could see them doing and running to the ground, like five rematches maybe. Like, because the Edge, that seems to be the course with Edge, right? Like, every time Edge feuds, it's like you get 5 more rematches with like the same person for weeks on end. So I definitely see them probably running this back. So the person who wins this first, I mean, maybe I could see it being Edge, just for the heel to get that advantage and the babyface wanting revenge.
What does Edge say he sits upon? The mountain of what is it? The mountain of
mediocrity?
Omnipotence?
Oh, okay, yes.
A mountain of omnipotence match at WrestleMania Backlash where they fight in the mountains of wherever.
Omnipotence, yes. Yes, sure. Yeah, whatever branding they can come up with. I mean, the last time he had a match at Backlash, wasn't that the greatest match of all time?
Was that the greatest match of all time? I think that was Backlash. It could have been. Moving on to Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville. This is the one I think Johnny Knoxville wins this match, and this is going to be, again, it's more so about the YouTube clip that we get out of this that we can send to all of media outlets. And
do you
Sami
truly
Zayn,
think Knoxville wins?
Yes, yeah, I do.
Why?
I think Sami Zayn they view as bulletproof. He doesn't need a win. No loss hurts him. He's in the same role, and he gets to then complain about this match for eternity afterwards. True. And how everyone was against him. And maybe you get like the Jackass crew showing up. There's a lot you can do with this. I'm entertained by this. I think the buildup has been a lot of fun from mainly from Zayn, but Knoxville's he's done his part, and this is all about doing something crazy.
Yeah, I'm not against this either, because it's an anything goes match. You're talking about a celebrity who's been known for doing crazy stunts and creative crazy stunts, which I think can fit very well in line with this style of professional wrestling match. So I'm curious to see, I don't know what rockets or shopping carts or I don't know.
I'm sorry. Is this Zayn photo not the best? The Zayn photo that I'm just staring at.
It's amazing. Yeah. I'm interested in the creativity, that the two will employ here. I think it'll be entertaining. It'll be a good way to break up, some of the rest of the show. I have more interest in this than some of the tag team matches that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I'd say this is the. I'm more interested in this than the Logan Paul match on the first night. I think that it's been a fun build up for a match that'll serve its purpose on the card. And then the main event, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. You think this goes on last?
Good chance, yeah.
Yeah. So we've got the title unification, title versus title for however long. Brock is advertised for WrestleMania Backlash, and again, whenever you look at this, like there's always the potential of what are going to be the post-mania plans? Like, is this, Reigns has had this lengthy run, and the one side looks at, well, the person to beat him should be someone that is going to be, this significant star that is going to be your next big, huge babyface star. They don't have that next big babyface star. So you can make that argument. Brock is as good as anybody if he's sticking around and we put the title on him. Or on the other side, we're just going to continue this lengthy reign with Roman Reigns until we get to that point where he is ready to drop the belt. There's you could make arguments, I think, either way here, but how about your thought on just the outcome of this?
Well, Roman still is the guy that you're going to have every single week on SmackDown.
Presumably,
sure. And I mean, but I can almost guarantee that Brock's not going to be there every single week. And again, we do have WrestleMania Backlash, so they can always run it back, whatever they want to do. But coming out of this, I still feel like it'll be Roman. I don't think they will. It could be. It's honestly 50-50. Like they can go either way. But I see them wanting to maintain the tribal chief character, especially if the talk next year is The Rock. And again,
Certainly.
a lot will happen between now and then. But again, we have to remember ourselves. Like, what's the audience that's only going to watch this year's WrestleMania and is not going to watch any WWE until next year? And therefore, who is your long-term project that you want to, put the double strap on? And I think it'll be Roman Reigns.
I do too. I think that even, I say presumably, like, you hear these little like lines that get thrown in there, like Reigns has thrown out that, oh, you don't know how long I might be around. It might not be as long as people think, or Heyman throwing out like this guy could go off and do a movie. Like, there's always like those concessions, but I would say regardless, I think that everything has been built around Roman, that even if this guy were going to leave for a month or two, I just think they're going to want to keep this for the possibility of doing something with The Rock next year, and that everything is built around Roman at this point, and winning again at WrestleMania. So,
big question I have. I mean, this to me comes straight off of Raw. Is can there be any Steve Austin interaction, either in this match or just purely on night 2?
I would say no. I would imagine that's not going to happen. If it did, it would be huge. But yeah, I'm not expecting that. But that would be a hell of a way. Like when I was on Ariel's show this week, I mean, his idea was, Roman wins and the show ends with The Rock's music hitting, and that really kind of sets the tone for next year.
That'd be amazing too.
The good is that that ends it on such a huge note. At the same time, it's like you have another year where it's pretty much telling people Roman's staying on top for a year until we get to this. And with The Rock, it's like today he could say, yeah, I'm doing Mania next year. And dude, that guy's life, it's who knows what could possibly come up in his life, that WrestleMania is not going to be his be all end all priority at the same time. So that's what, like, if you can lock him in, great. That is the obvious match to make next year. But at the same time, it's, can you guarantee that a year out? And do you need to announce that a year away from next year?
They chose to do it, 10 years ago when he built that match with John Cena the night after WrestleMania, the year prior. So I mean, it would be the best way to drive headlines and to build interest a year out for next year's WrestleMania. Plans can always change, they can always things happen. People have short-term memories, but I would love to see it if that is the way that they're considering ending the show.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's also interesting, like Brock being advertised for Backlash, of like what, like if he wins or he loses, what the follow-up is for him after this show. He's advertised for Backlash. He's advertised for that Money in the Bank show in Vegas. I don't know if he's advertised for the June pay-per-view, but nonetheless, like it seems like it's not as though, he's taken off and disappearing for 6 months after this.
Do we have a Saudi show coming up too? Like at some point, or is that not till October?
September was Andrew Zarian had reported as the next one, so a bit away. When you bring up the Austin one, like that to me is one of the biggest questions coming out of this weekend, because I don't even know if the answer would be known today of how Austin feels coming out of this on Saturday night, and if that is either, hey, that's a great final big thing to do at a Mania, or if it kind of reinvigorates that, hey, this was a home run. The lead up has been terrific. The crowd reaction we know is going to be tremendous. And if he comes out of it thinking, I did a great job, man, I want to do this again. And that's a possibility.
I think he will look good.
I do too. I do too.
And I think the demand for him to do a proper match will be that much higher. You know, you have a lot of dream matches that are available. Every single person in this roster is a potential dream match for Steve Austin. So I think it'll be really that much harder for him to resist coming off of this weekend.
He's also in maybe like the tiniest percentage of people that I imagine there's never been a performer in the history of this industry that has probably declined more money in the last 19 years for potential matches. And very, very, and himself said that it took him years to get this industry out of his system. And just think of the millions of dollars that this guy has likely turned down from past WrestleMania opportunities, Saudi shows. I mean, the money was there to be made. This is someone that has an extreme high level of pride in his work that few are going to have a reliance on, as opposed to, what I can do. And for 19 years, he has not at least crossed that line. But nonetheless, it's an interesting question coming out of the show. So there you go. Those are both nights of WrestleMania.
It's a lot of wrestling we just went through, everybody. So
thank God there's a cool down on Monday where we've got the return of Veer for 3 hours on
the main
Raw
event.
Monday.
We should have started off with that. Yeah. We got a couple super chats here from people in the room, and we always want to thank people who just send super chats for the most part out of support. You can always, of course, ask a question, but today Jamie decided to say, "Keep up the great work, guys. Do you think Cody will be himself, or will he be Stardust?"
No, I do not think he will be Stardust. They would be out of their damn mind.
I mean, I don't rule out him appearing as Stardust later on in the run. Maybe as a one night only thing.
I could see Seth dressing up as Stardust maybe if this feud continues.
Interesting. I think Cody is somebody who, I mean, he's a big comic book fan. He's a fan of, I think, drawing, throwing Easter eggs out there in his work. And we saw as recently as that Ring of Honor show we just reviewed from 2017, where he hit
17.
He hid the dashing Cody Rhodes mask underneath the ring in that Ring of Honor match. So I can definitely see him playing with his alter egos as special occasion things in the future, but not on his first day back. I think to me, he should show up full on Homelander, AEW Cody Rhodes, blonde hair, big tattoo, big robe type of thing with the same entrance if he can. That to me is the appeal. We got a Stefan Kyle Gosign who sends a $5 super chat. Thank you, Stefan. He says, keep up the great work, and he hopes this keeps us caffeinated this weekend. I'm actually completely out of coffee, so thank you very much, Stefan, for that. And if you aren't able to join us for any of these super chats or live shows, the best way to support us, of course, is at postwrestlingcafe.com. Not only do you support the channel, but we will fill your ears. We will oversaturate the shit out of you and all of your entire families as you subject them to our voices 24 hours a day, nonstop, covering as much professional wrestling as we can.
Yes. So a quick rundown of the schedule this week. Tonight, we are back right after SmackDown and the Hall of Fame ceremony. That is for Post Wrestling Cafe members only. And then on Saturday, multiple shows coming your way. I'll be doing a solo show for Cafe members on the ROH show. Way and John Pine will be reviewing Spring Break Part 2. And Braden and Davey will have a post show right after NXT Stand and Deliver. So if you want a whole rundown of the NXT card, which will be an interesting show. I think it's a very important show for NXT happening on Saturday. We're live Saturday night, minutes after WrestleMania 38, night 1, here on the channel. So give it a subscribe. You'll see as soon as we are going live, and then live again Sunday night right after night 2. So all of that can be found postwrestling.com. We have already several reports up on the site from John Cena and John Pine covering events that have been going down, and they will have plenty coming up this weekend. Bruce Lord will be covering the New Japan show. We're going to have tons of reports coming your way. There you can see the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Super Show, Planet Death, Spring Break, Night 1, Bloodsport 8, Post Wrestling as you covered.
Let's give some love to Cena, Pine, and Bruce Lord for this weekend, because between the two of them, we think we're watching a lot. Those guys are watching everything nonstop. So great work as always from our team.
Yes, and shout out to Andrew Thompson, who is in Dallas. If you run into him, I think he's going to be at For the Culture today. He's going to night 1 of WrestleMania. And I think he's going to Spring Break as well tonight as well. So if you see Andrew Thompson, do say hello. He is representing. down in Dallas, Texas. So that is going to wrap things up. Thanks to everybody for tuning in live. We'll speak with you tonight after SmackDown and the Hall of Fame.